Hi, beautiful souls. It's Tan back here again today with you on this Astrology, Human Design, and Gene Keys channel. And I'm here today with you with a transmission of Gene Key 12, Human Design Gate 12, and that is the zodiac sign of Gemini. So I do feel like it's been a while since I've sat down and filmed a video for you guys. This eclipse season has been a very hectic and chaotic one, a very busy one, so I just haven't had time to actually sit down and make a video. But I'm here today. And yesterday, while I was in my garden, feeling very nice, I was just randomly opening the pages in my Gene Keys book, and I was like, whichever page I open, that's going to be the Gene Key that I make next a video for my channel, and it just happens to be Gene Key 12. Before we get started, I just want to remind you guys that we are currently doing various different kinds of readings. We have that available with me and my team on my website, tanastrology.com. So feel free to visit if you feel called to get a reading from us. We are happy to be your guides on your self-discovery journeys. So without further ado, let's jump in and have a brief overview of Gene Key number 12. So Gene Key 12 moves from the shadow of vanity to the gift of discrimination to the siddhi of purity. And it's associated with the zodiac sign of Gemini from 2237 degrees to 2815 degrees of Gemini. And this particular archetype is associated at the fear key level with the praying mantis. At the life key animal, it is the wolf, and the vision key bird is the nightingale. In the codon ring, this gene key is in the ring of secrets, and it's associated with the amino acid that is a terminator or stop codon. In the 64 I Ching hexagram, this gene key is heaven over earth, stand still. The programming partner of Gene Key 12 is Gene Key or Gate 11, and that is the Sagittarius archetype. The programming partner offers a balancing complementary opposite point to this particular archetype and all archetypes. In human design, this gate 12, is located in the throat center, and it connects to gate 22 in the solar plexus, forming the channel called the channel of passion or openness. So before we get started, I'd like you guys to comment below if you have this gene key or this gate or these particular degrees of Gemini somewhere in your chart, and let us know what your experiences have been. I have my ascendant in Gemini at 26 degrees, so my ascendant falls into gate 12 and gene key number 12. So a lot of the things that I present physically is gene key 12. Okay, so let's talk a little bit first about the vision key bird of this archetype, which is the nightingale. So we tend to associate the nightingale as being a beautiful songbird because it has a beautiful singing voice. But did you know that the nightingale is a bird that tends to sing most of the time, this beautiful voice that we hear at night? Usually it's the male that sings at night in order to court the females during breeding season. So therefore, the nightingale has been associated with bringing light to darkness, bringing beauty to darkness, and love. And I love this association with love and darkness. There's something there in the symbolism of the nightingale. If the nightingale has come into your life in some ways, it is a really good time to be looking at your heart and how much love are you giving through your voice and how much love is being transmitted through your voice into the world from your heart space. If you have this particular gene key, human design gate, this zodiac degrees, some of the characteristics that you might embody is of course going to be that you are somebody who is very communicative in some ways because this gate is located in the throat, but the way that you communicate has a certain amount of caution to it because this is a gate of standstill, remember. So you don't just say anything when you're at a higher frequency of it. You only speak from a place of love and from your heart. And sometimes you're able to speak things into the world that is coming from a place of the gift of discrimination here, which is like mind-heart balance, we can say. There's love there, but there's also a good good head, a good ability to logicalize things when you speak them out. There's also going to be somehow your ability, you have this trait of being able to associate yourself with art, with music. Maybe it's visual arts, maybe it's dancing in some ways, and you can either be expressing yourself through art or be a very good art critique because you have an ability to see things that is fake versus things that is authentic. There may be a youthful or even pure essence about you. There's something about you which either people are going to perceive as you being fake or vain, or that you have a certain amount of innocence and purity about you. So without further ado, let's dig deeper into this gene key and have a look at the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. So the shadow of this gene key is called vanity. So as I mentioned before, this gene key in the codon ring is in a codon ring called the codon ring of secrets. It's part of the terminator or the stop codon within the human DNA. And what this means is there's 3 gene keys that are part of this stop codon. And what they all do, so I think it's the 56, the 33, and the 12 that are part of it, that are stop codons. And what stop codons represent in the gene keys is that they test us on the path of our self-realization. The shadow of vanity and what this test has for us, if we have this particular archetype within us somewhere, is the test of love and self-love. And if you think about the word vanity, you may immediately think of somebody who is bloated, in their sense of self-love, which means they love themselves too much. But actually, the trick here is that vanity is actually stemming from a false sense of self-love. It's actually when we don't truly love ourselves. So therefore, we have to overcompensate for this, we can say, self-hate by overly loving ourselves and being unable to love others. Because we are not separate from other beings. And when you look at the siddhi of purity with this gene key, when you look at what's really pure within all of us as human beings, it is our soul. If you imagine the crystal that we've all come into this earth through, we were all this crystallized, pure crystal, but we've taken on different physical bodies. And through our conditioning, through the material world and things that happen in our life, through our traumas, our soul has been fragmented or tainted in some ways. But we all came from this pure and innocent source. And if you understood this, you would be able to love yourself and love everybody else. They can never be separate from each other, because we all came from the same source. But in the shadow of vanity, this understanding isn't really there. And when this understanding isn't really there, there's this sense of separateness. You feel that you're separate from the person in front of you. And you may not be able to see the purity within the person in front of you. You may not be able to see the goodness within them. And if you're not able to do that in another person, then you can't do that within yourself, because we all came from the same source. So you have to overcompensate for that in order to live in this world by boosting your sense of self-love, which then becomes vanity. And the irony here is that if you want to step out of vanity, you can't stop being vain. The moment you tell yourself that you're going to stop being vain, the moment you tell yourself that I'm going to step out of the shadow of vanity and I'm going to be in the gift of discrimination, the siddhi of purity, you are in vanity. So the moment that you can learn to love the fact that you love yourself, you really love yourself, not the false sense of overcompensation, that is when you incorporate vanity in a healthy way into your life so that it becomes the love for all. With the shadow of vanity, there's sometimes the fear of losing power. There's this fear that if you were to to navigate the world truly from your heart, that you were to show love to everyone that you meet, that somehow you will lose your power, that somehow people will take advantage of you. And that means that you are coming from a place of seeing the evil within others rather than seeing the goodness and the purity within others, which means that that is what you also see about yourself. So this gate 12 and gene key number 12 in the body is associated with the thyroid and the parathyroid glands, and therefore it's also associated with the larynx. The larynx is part of our throat, and according to Richard Rudd, what separates us from animals is that we have a vertical larynx, whereas animals have a horizontal larynx. And this potential to have a vertical larynx is what gives us this feeling of ego. Because if you think about animals, the term ego doesn't really exist. There's this pure survival quality to animals. There isn't this association of the ego within them, but it does exist within human beings. So the Greek word and the Dutch word for the larynx is actually stemming from a word that means shield. So in Dutch, it's schildklier, and in Greek, the word thyroid is what is coming from the word that means shield. It means shield. So therefore, when we look at this gene key, we can see that it has a protective quality about it because it's protecting the secret. This being part of the codon ring of secret. What is that secret? The secret that it's protecting here is the secret of the human language. And I can see this protective quality associated with, this part of our body, like the throat part, as attributing to that hexagram of standstill, that caution. There's a protectiveness to it. The throat of the gene key 12, the human design gate 12, is protecting the person from speaking and gives this cautionary trait to the speech of the person who has this archetype. So the secret of language is that we human beings attribute a lot of power to language. We give language so much power that is associated and that comes from the mind. And this happens when you identify with your words. The secret here is that if you have gene key 12, human design gate 12, it doesn't really matter what you actually say. It doesn't matter what words you use when you speak, because people can see through you because of the tone of your voice. You can never hide the actual intention behind the tone of your voice. So you can be saying that you love somebody, but if your tone is not there, it's going to come through and people will be able to see it. But on the other hand, you also have the ability to do that as well, to be able to see beyond the words that is coming from other people. And sometimes this shadow of vanity lies in staying silent. Sometimes when you don't speak, your thoughts and your feelings are still being perceived and absorbed by those around you, even when you don't say anything. So you see that there is this illusion to the actual language and the words that we've given it so much power, but there's a lot more underneath, behind words and language. So Richard Rudd mentions as well in his book that if you were somehow drawn to maybe reading the Gene Keys book, or you're drawn to human design, or you're drawn to astrology in some ways, you are in the shadow of vanity. Because it's an act of loving yourself. It's an act of you wanting to know about yourself. And the way I see this is, that's okay. If you think that, oh, I'm doing this and it's vain and I have to stop, that's vanity because you're trying to be good. So it's still vanity. That's the irony here. And I think there's a lot of ironies with Gene Key 12 and with the archetype, the Human Design Gate 12, because When you think about darkness, and you have to think about the programming partner. I just wanted to mention the programming partner of this is Gene Key and Human Design Gate 11, right? And that's the gift, the city of light. So if the opposite point of this gate is the gate of light, this gate is a gate of darkness. And that's why the nightingale sings in the dark. There's beauty in the dark. Okay. Sorry, guys. I just had a really big cough. Ooh, my larynx is doing some work there. But oftentimes when we think of the word purity and the city of purity, we associate it with goodness. But purity is not about being good. It's more about being authentic. Even if you're in the dark, even if you're feeling ugly, even if you're at your worst self, accepting that that is what you are in that moment, that is purity. Purity is authenticity. That crystal that crystal of our soul that has come into this body, is it good or bad? You can't really say. It's not good or bad. It's just pure. It's pure substance. It's not being influenced by anything. And that is what it is, even if it is dark. So that's the irony here, is that vanity has to exist in order to find light in the programming partner of the 11. Darkness has to exist in order to have light. You can't have one without the other. Light has to exist to have darkness. If there's light in the world, there will be darkness in the world. If there's darkness in the world, there's light in the world somewhere. And then we have the gift of discrimination, which we're going to talk about pretty soon. And Richard also mentions that if you are somehow feeling powerful, you're feeling wise, you're feeling individuated, you're in the shadow of vanity. And again, it's okay. You have to accept that you are a human being and that you are going to have vanity along with light inside of you always. So the shadow of vanity can manifest in the material world in two different ways. The first way is the more repressed version of a vanity, which means that there's this feeling of elitism within you. So you may be the type that considers yourself to have done a lot of spiritual work. You've done a lot of shadow work. You come a long way in your self-growth and self-improvement, and therefore you are more spiritual than somebody who hasn't done it. That's elitism in some ways. And this type of shadow may not manifest itself in its way that can easily be seen on the surface. There's a secret there, but it's there within an individual who has it. And you may come across as somebody who doesn't say very much, because you think that you are better than others in some ways. So you refrain from associating with them or from speaking with them in some ways. And then we have the more reactive shadow here, which is somebody that may use their words in a very malicious way to harm other people, just because they know that they can use this illusion that we all have, that we all associate power with words. They use that as a tool to hurt other people by saying things that really triggers others, that really touches them at a place that's very like their weakness. So we can also have that coming in as well. So let's have a look at the gift of discrimination with this gene key in Human Design Gate. And yes, this gene key has been given the word discrimination. And of course, if you are looking at this word discrimination, you're like, discrimination is bad. There's a lot of discrimination in the world already. We discriminate between genders, we discriminate between race, we discriminate between economic classes. Why is the gift here discrimination? Because of the duality of the world, because of the light and the dark in the world. That's just the way the world is. Discrimination can be put to good use as well as bad use. And the discrimination that we see in the world that hurts people is the bad form of discrimination. But we also have the good form of discrimination as well. That's the gift of discrimination, is to be able to say that discrimination has light and dark, shadow and light. So the light of discrimination, the good use of discrimination, is to be able to discriminate who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Because the life key animal of this gene key is, after all, the wolf. And so the wolf is always part of a pack. And therefore, the wolf has to be able to discriminate who belongs in their pack and who doesn't. And if somebody doesn't belong in their pack, that's okay. They may belong in a different pack, but you can't take everyone on into your pack. And you also can't be alone forever. So you have to choose who's going to be in your pack and who's not. Because the gift of discrimination helps you to also see who is fake and who is authentic. And those that are authentic, those who belong in your pack, will have something that you can tell it's different from those that don't, and then you want to bring them into your pack. The way that you can, well, like I think I said before, it's really hard to do, but one of the things that you can do to take that shadow of vanity and turn it into the gift of discrimination is to use your vanity for creative, artistic purposes. So try to see the world as a place where you can love. Try to love something else. Well, I don't want to say try, but with this gift, what can you love within something that's outside of you? And music and art and dance and acting, these kinds of things take you out of your mind for a little while and allow you to get in touch with your emotions and your heart. And if you can get in touch with that place inside of you, you will find love, because love is linked to romance. Love is linked to the muse. When you fall in love, you have a muse. That person becomes your muse. It's the very same way as love can work here with this gift of discrimination. What do you love? What outside of yourself do you also love? If you go to a gallery, what art pieces do you love? If you listen to music, what kind of music do you love? And how can you then get involved in that? Create that for yourself. The gift of discrimination is able to understand the difference between fake soul expression and authentic soul expression. So this gift also has the potential to look at pieces of art, whether it's music or dance or visual arts or a painting, and be able to say, this art piece is true, and it's the soul of the artist is there. This art piece is fake. This artist was just mimicking or copying somebody else. Their soul is not really there. Therefore, it's not really a genuine art piece. The gift of discrimination here sets you to be somebody that doesn't fall as a victim to enchantments and charm, because the gift of discrimination always has a level of practicality to it. So I wanted to bring up an example of somebody who has this gene key as their sun, and there's a lot of controversies regarding her in the spiritual community, and that is Teal Swan. She has her sun in Gemini in gene key 12. But I wanted to bring her up at this point because although she talks a lot about spiritual topics on her channel and as a part of her work, but there's always a level of practicality, pragmatism to what she says. There's a level of balancing between the lightness of spirituality and the darkness of spirituality. And when you look at Teal Swan, there's a lot to think about, because when I look at her, I don't think she's entirely pure, to be honest. There's something about her that's quite vain. It's in her aura, it's in the way that she talks, it's just there. Like, you're just looking at her, like, this woman is a bit arrogant and vain. But again, I'm like, what she says is important, and a lot of what she says has truth in it, and it matters to the world. And so therefore I would listen to her teachings from a place of discrimination. Like, to me, I don't think I would ever like pay money to go to her retreats and things like that. this is just personally for me, because my values don't align with the way that she presents herself, but I would listen for hours and hours to what she has to say, because there's a lot that I can learn from that. So using my gift of discrimination with somebody who has their sun in the gene key of discrimination, who is also a reflector in human design, by the way. So I want to read a quote from Richard Rudd's book here. When he talks about the gift of discrimination, he says, "Because of the depth of feeling that this gift entails, it tells us something profound about the direction of the human species. We're here to learn to express the deepest yearnings and feelings within our souls. This is why we have to master language and the arts, because they are the transformational field through which we can transcend emotion and touch the higher planes." I thought it was really beautiful, because the throat center, this gate being part of the throat center being like that center of transmission, it's here to transmit emotions. It's here to transmit higher messages into this plane. And if those messages and those expressions is somehow valuable for you in your life, if it has some love to it in some ways, it's very important. That doesn't mean that you have to become a victim to it. All high art contains the same codes that come through this 12th gift, that life is about transformation. And death is a symbolic movement from one stage of consciousness to another. These truths have always been encoded in the great tragedies and comedies down the ages. When you look at movies, music, and art, they have these themes of transformation and death and loss within them. And within that is authenticity and purity. You're not going to watch a movie or look at a work of art or listen to music that doesn't have some amount of tragedy within them. Because this is what we want to express as human beings living this human experience. That is very spiritual in its nature. Spirituality is not all love and light, and I'm sure you guys out there know that already. It is dark, deep, healing, and transformative. So then we reach the siddhi of purity. And what does this mean, the siddhi of purity? So Richard Rudd calls this siddhi of purity falling in love with the beloved. So the beloved is seen as your higher self. This is your higher self falling in love with itself. This is when the divine falls in love with you. And this can only be achieved once we think about the crystal, the way that we all came into this world as that crystalline form. The next time that you see somebody who is maybe acting in a way that's abusive or damaging to the world in some ways, are you able to still love them? That's the question. Because they were once unified and one with you. We all came from the same source, but we have a different body, we have a different life experience. You may be a doctor helping save people's lives. That other person may be a criminal, he may be in prison. But we've all come from the same source. And to love the other person, to love somebody who has done something bad, that doesn't mean that you have to let them into your life. That doesn't mean that you have to forget what they have done. That doesn't mean that you don't want to give justice for what they have done. Love is just this feeling of compassion that you can have for another because we were once unified. That's it. That's all. And that is not even something easy to do. Richard Rudd says that even the most evil of beings has at its core a shining, pure heart, which means that in truth, there is no evil. There are only progressive levels of density. And if you have this gate, this gene key, I highly recommend that you also check out my video on the harmonic gate, which is gene key 22, human design gate 22. I think I just made that like a few weeks ago because it connects in a channel with the 12. And I see the 12 as being, because it's a throat, the doorway, the window to which the divine can descend. If you watch the one on the 22, you'll see that that's about the divine descending into form. And this is the doorway in which that can happen. And if you can see that we're all divinities, descending into this human form, there's a lot of love that we can really give to the world. And I want to leave you guys with a last message here, that the word purity itself, if you say that word to yourself, purity, words have levels of frequency. And that's what is recommended to do with all the gene keys, is really to say the words out loud and see how they resonate, see how they vibrate within your soul. And gene key 12 is, we can say, the embodiment of that, the trigger for that. It holds this manifestation technique within it, because this gift is all about the vibration, the tone of your voice. It's all about language and the frequency of your voice. So speak purity and you'll see the magic it does to your life. All right, beautiful soul, that's going to be it for my transmission of Gene Key and Human Design Gate 12 and Gene Key 12, this Zodiac Degrees of Gemini. Yeah, that's it for today, beautiful souls. If you're interested in a reading, head over to my website, tanastrology.com, and grab one for yourself now from either me or my beautiful, amazing team of astrologers who are very happy to be guiding you on your self-discovery journeys. All right, that's it for today, beautiful souls. Have a beautiful day.